For those of you who haven't been at one of our HMIS trainings before, we manage two audiences. So we have you in person and we have a virtual audience who's seeing everything on the screen and hearing the room. We'll be doing lots of repeat of the questions so that they get those as well, and then we'll be repeating their questions out loud. So this is a way to try to provide as much access as possible for these trainings, and then we locate them around the county at different locations to, again, try to provide as much access as possible.
Hello, and welcome to the Coordinated Entry for All and HMIS training. Before we get started today, we will cover some key terms and acronyms. CEA stands for Coordinated Entry for All. HTT stands for the Housing Triage Tool, also known as the VI SPDAT assessment. CQ stands for Community Queue, also known as the queue or the pool. HMIS is the Homeless Management Information System, also known as Clarity Human Services. Assessors refer to staff who are trained to complete the HTT with a client, and referral specialists are King County staff who review the community queue, contact clients, and make referrals to housing providers.
CEA today. As I said earlier, there's assessors at regional access points and community-based assessors that help clients complete the housing triage tool and make the referral to the community queue or the CQ. Agencies that you represent post available units or resources if you're representing an agency that has rapid rehousing openings into HMIS or Clarity. The next step is that the CEA staff contact clients or families that are experiencing homelessness and make referrals to a variety of resources, including rapid rehousing, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, and permanent housing for both youth and families. Currently, the only resource available for single adults is permanent supportive housing. And sometimes those referrals are made in case conferencing. So we'll touch on that shortly. Stop me if you have any questions. Looking around the room. Nope. Okay. So this graph is the timeline or the client experience from on the left, first contact with Coordinated Entry for All. So it's the triage, diversion, and assessment. So when they enter, for example, regional access point, there's a quick survey to see if they're experiencing homelessness or fleeing domestic violence. A diversion conversation happens with the staff of the regional access points, and if the diversion conversation doesn't prove fruitful, the housing triage tool, the VI is conducted. That going to the next box, the housing triage tool is referred to the community queue or the CQ, and based on the score, so if it's a score of 4 or above across subpopulations, that's single adults, families, and young adults, they are put onto the community queue, and if they are scoring at the top of each band, is everyone familiar with banding? Okay, so if they score at the top.
It may not be.
Yes. Okay, so banding are ranges where certain resources are allocated. So families, for example, the family band 2, which is the lower band, is from 4 to 10. There's things like transitional housing available for folks in some permanent housing. From 11 to 22 is band 3, things like permanent supportive housing. Rapid rehousing, it permeates the band, so it goes from 3 to 2. So anyone in those bands can access rapid rehousing.
Okay, so 3 separate categories.
Correct.
Based on a rating system?
Based on the score from the VI SPDAT. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, of course. So going back to case conferencing, for each band in each subpopulation, the top 40 households, those are either families or single adults or singles that are experiencing homelessness, are put on a priority list, which we refer to as the top 40 because there are 40 households, and they're discussed in case conferencing. Case conferencing is a meeting that occurs between Coordinated Entry for All staff, housing providers, and also direct service providers that are working with people experiencing homelessness, and discuss individuals that are prioritized to get them prepared, document ready in some instances, not always, and prepare them or match them with resources that are currently available in the community. The next box, which is kind of a triangle, is the client contact, client accepts. And for the case conferencing, it's the individual or the representative that is working with the household that's experiencing homelessness. So if you have shelter staff that attends the case conferencing, they'll sometimes accept on behalf of the household that's experiencing homelessness. If you've got an outreach worker, et cetera, that's working with this individual or family, they'll accept. In between those meetings, the referral specialists are contacting the individuals experiencing homelessness directly on the phone. Sometimes it's a text message, sometimes it's an email, whatever way we can get a hold of them. And then the final box is the referral is processed by you or your colleagues at your agency. Two things can occur from that. They're enrolled, in which case, it's obvious they're working with your program, or there's an unsuccessful referral, and that's this arrow that kind of goes back to the HMIS referral to the community queue, and those are labeled in clarity as denials, so they can happen for a variety of reasons, and we'll be going over those reasons later on in the meeting. And then at the bottom, across the process, HMIS and clarity are used. Any questions about that?
Okay, so that was I got it. I can hear so that was a nice overview. So it's good for me to get a sense. Are any of you assessors? Have any of you filled out the triage tool? Okay, so you're familiar with this left-hand side, the left-hand side of this graphic, where you're having that conversation with the person experiencing homelessness, and if you're filling out the housing triage tool, you're going through that process, saving it in the HMIS system, sending that person to the queue. That piece, that functionality in HMIS, that gets covered in the assessor trainings. We're not covering that today. But it's good to know some of you, and probably some of the folks online also, have experience interacting with HMIS in that way for the purpose of coordinated entry. How many of you have posted units? And by units, you might hear us talk about those as openings, resources, just either the actual physical place or the voucher that is going to house somebody when you get a referral. So a few of you have. Okay, great. We're going to spend some time on that, because that obviously has to happen before the referral specialist can make a referral, because they then are looking to see what's available. Can't make a referral to something if that project doesn't have anything to house this client with. And you're going to hear me use terms like client, because that's what the term is in HMIS. So we talk about the client profile, and so I'll default sometimes to those HMIS terms. And then how many of you have actually received and processed a referral in HMIS? Great, good. So for the online audience, we had probably 10 folks raise their hands. I'm assuming there's a mix also on the in the online audience. So when we're using, if I go back here, as Alex was referring in this graphic, some piece of the process, we're using HMIS for a variety of different ways. We're using it to store the data and to score it for the housing triage tool, to place that person in the queue, and then as a tool for sending the referral to you and enrolling them and having it integrated with HMIS. So we're using it in a variety of different ways. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows the pieces and how to do it in HMIS, because it's more efficient for you, more efficient for the people that you're serving. So the first thing that I talked about was the posting units. We assume that when you're posting a unit, it's not the very first time that the referral specialists are going to know that your project is now participating in coordinated entry. Alex and his team and the program have a process by which they are communicating with agencies about participating in CEA after they know, yes, you're going to be participating. Yes, these are the housing resources you have available. Then you're probably to the stage of posting units in the system. I'm going to pop over and do the demo. For those of you who have already posted, in a few days, it's going to look a little different. It used to be just 2 fields that you filled out. Now there's a form for you to fill out because that gives the referral specialists more information. As soon as you post a unit or a resource in the system, the referral specialists see it come up on a dashboard that we've built for them so that they are constantly aware of what's available. So you're communicating with them through that posting of that we're ready to receive a referral. Key thing to remember is, besides making sure you're in communication with CEA, completing all the fields that are relevant, and then uniquely identifying each unit. And I'll show you the additional notes field that still shows up at the top is the place that we still want you to post a unit number. Those of you who have been posting know that that's where it happens. If you have something like a voucher, you still need to uniquely identify each one, because that's what the referral specialists use to say, I have this person that needs a referral. I'm going to assign them to voucher 1. Now there's 3 vouchers left. Now voucher 2, you know. So it's just for a way of keeping organized so that if somebody gets sent back, we know what's becoming available. So the question was, can you replicate the form so you don't have to keep refilling it out? And currently with this feature, you have to fill it out every time. Yes, so the question is, can you go back and edit it if you have to save without having all the information? Yes, you can definitely do that. Yes, it's a good question. And this will be rolling out, these custom fields are new. You may see adjustments over time. If anything changes radically, we'll do a communication like we would usually do, or have a newsletter article. And then I'm sure CEA also would reinforce that with all the providers that they know are posting resources in the system as well. Okay, so now I'm going to pop over to the training system to show. So here I'm in our training system. Looks a little different sometimes than the live system because of me being logged in as an administrator. There might be things on the screen that you're not used to seeing. Also, not all of you have the same permission levels in your agencies. So depending on what your permission levels are, you may or may not see every single thing that is on the screen. Hopefully all the critical stuff you'll be able to see. If you ever have any questions about that, feel free to call the help desk. We want to make sure that you're getting access to what you need access to. So I am logged in. I'm on the home screen, which is the search bar. And if I am now wanting to get into sort of the coordinated entry area of HMIS, I know to go over to the very right-hand referral tab. I click on the referral tab. Now, this is the area where I will be able to see who is pending for a referral, which we'll talk about later, and where I can post units. To post units, I click on the availability tab. And I think you can see it up there. I'm going to see the active projects that are set up in HMIS and the ones that are set to limited availability, which they should be already if you're participating. I am going to see these drop-down arrows over to the right so that I know that I can open that up and post a unit. And I can also see if one of the units that I've posted has a referral that's waiting and has reserved it. So I'm under this, my project called PSH Housing. I see that I have a unit available. It has some fields filled out. I also have a unit that's being reserved, held by a referral right now. So this is just telling you what you might see if you were to go there and look under your projects. To post a new unit, so I know I have more than just these units. Well, and to answer the other question, you should always have the modify and the delete icons. So if I needed to open this existing one back up and add more information now, I could modify this opening and it would let me edit it. So if I click on that, then I'm opening up the form and it's going to let me edit it. But if I want to post a new one, then I'm going to go down to either add a single opening or add multiple openings. It looks pretty much the same, but I'll show you, I'll do the multiple to kind of answer your question, Anne, about what that looks like. So once I'm adding an opening, again, that's the language that HMIS uses for adding a resource, a voucher, a unit, an apartment, whatever. It's going to ask me for the multiple openings, how many are we going to duplicate here? So I'm just going to say 2. The date that I'm entering this, it'll default to today. The additional notes, now I know because I've attended this training and because there's this note down below it that says, please enter the unit number in additional notes above. The additional notes, even though I'm going to go back and edit. Right now, I'm going to say that this is voucher 1, and then all of them will say voucher 1 until I go back and edit, since I'm adding multiple. I am, as I scroll down, I see that I can add the unit description, anything that's important to know. And Alex, at any point you should chime in about if there's important things that you want to make sure that they are always thinking about when they're posting openings. So anything that's important for the referral specialist to know about this unit, the date that it's available. So I'm going to say that it's available today. Now, because I've listed this as a voucher, you may have different things that you're saying about this than if it was a physical apartment building that you run and you want them to know, this unit's on the ground floor, this one, has this many bedrooms. As you go down, if I scroll down, tab down, I can see that I'm being asked for a minimum household size. I can say we can house a certain family of a certain size for this resource. Age range, if this building is 55 and up, I need to be able to make sure to distinguish that here. Does it have any accessibility features? And then there's a number of questions about specific populations that you're serving with this resource. So this voucher is a family resource. I can keep scrolling down, and there's eligibility criteria. So if my resource is dedicated to a specific population based on certain eligibility criteria, you can talk about that here as well, because then that will help the referral specialist see the resources in that way. And I have space at the bottom as well to add some additional. All these toggles, hopefully you're familiar with. So if I say 55 plus, if I say, like I showed you, if you click on the toggle, yes or no. Once I get down to the bottom, I add the resource. Now, you're going to see I have voucher 1. I had the first one that was already there, unit 202. I have voucher 1, and I have another voucher 1 because I added multiple units. I'm going to go back. I'm going to edit and make that voucher 2. The form is being refined over time based on how the CEA program evolves over time. It is very critical to communicate anything important about this unit that in terms of accessibility, and definitely uniquely identify it and the dates of when it's actually available.
At the bottom of the unit posting, if you click on 6 or more fields, will that pop up with the rest of the fields?
No, it is a flag that there are more fields in there. So this down here at the bottom where it says 6 or more fields, it's letting you know there are more fields than you can see in this display. You should edit it to open it up and see the other fields if you needed to go back in there. Okay. And when the referral specialists are making their referral through their process, while they can see this information on their dashboard, and they can come into the availability tab and see it. When they're in the actual referral, they will only see the date and that unique identifier that you've given it, the voucher number. So for the process of connecting the referral to the unit and making sure it's unit 1, unit 2, voucher 1, voucher 2, it's a great idea to have that unique identifier in there. So now under my permanent supportive housing project, I have 3 resources that are available, right? I have these 2 vouchers and this unit 202, and I have 1 resource that's currently being held by a potential referral. If this referral, if I were to accept it and enroll them, then this would disappear, and I would have to repost that unit. If it were to get denied and the person sent back to the queue, I still have to repost the unit. No, now it's automatic, isn't it? Okay. Then you get to, thank you. Then it will show back up.
And if you're enrolling, there would be no cause to repost.
Right. Right. I think sometimes that question comes up because numbering vouchers seems like an odd thing, but if you're actually filling a unit. So repeating that is, so in terms of when it disappears and when it doesn't. Okay, so when I'm enrolling the client, it disappears. And if it is a resource that I need to repost, so even for the apartment, they now exit that apartment. That apartment's available. I have to repost that unit. If I deny the referral, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they are no longer holding that, and that client gets sent back to the community queue, then that unit becomes automatically available. So our online audience can't hear you over there.
Sure.
So do you want to repeat? Can you stand over here and
of course.
repeat the question? And
So the question was for resources that are for programs that have consistent eligibility for their resources, for their units. What is the logic behind putting all these additional questions in? The reason being is some programs have different eligibility for different units, like ADA or stairs or different unit sizes, and we found that sometimes the text box wasn't filled in a way that gave us all the details that we needed in order to make a good referral. So we then were prompted to put in these extra toggles and questions.
great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to escape out of here and go back to the slides, but I will be back. And now we want to be able to find and process the referrals. So referral specialists now know that you have stuff available and that they can start sending referrals your way. Like Alex already talked about, the graphic here that talks about the referral to the queue, the case conferencing process. So that's all happening by the referral specialists and the providers that are involved in that process. The box in the middle, we talked about available units, the eligibility criteria that is either given to us that shows which project or that a client is available or eligible for, and which is also now part of those unit postings. The next arrow triangle shape, like Alex talked about, the individuals are being contacted, the resources being either accepted on their behalf by the provider, or they're being asked, do you want this referral? And then the referral is sent. So then it goes back to, now it's to you. I've sort of just talked about this process. When the referral is made by CEA, they're making it to the specific available unit that you've now posted, whether that unit is a voucher or a physical place, that it's moved from the community queue tab in HMIS to the pending tab. You guys aren't spending time, except for the referral specialists, you aren't spending time on the community queue, you're spending time on the pending tab, your agency's pending tab, which I will show you in the system. You will receive an auto notice of the referral. If you're not receiving those and you think you should be, you should contact us. And I'll talk about the auto notices in just a minute. Once you know that you've got a referral, because you either see it show up on your pending tab or you see the auto notice or CEA has somehow given you a heads up that it's coming, then you are processing it. You're letting CEA know that you've got it, and there's a way that you do that in the system. And then you're either accepting or denying and sending that person back to the queue. When that client's referral goes from the queue to your pending tab, when that referral has been made to you, referral specialists aren't seeing them anymore. That client is not going to receive another referral to any other resource until you send them back to the queue, if that is the end result. So either you're accepting it or you're sending them back, but once they're with you, they're not getting any other referral.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the question is about what, I'm going to try to shorten it.
Yeah.
What a navigator project should be doing with a client if they see that that client gets denied their housing referral. Only the housing providers are sending people back to the queue.
Okay.
The navigators shouldn't be sending people back to the queue because it's a separate parallel process to a housing referral.
Okay.
So a housing referral goes to a housing provider. If they can't serve them, they'll send them back to the queue for another housing referral.
So the housing navigator should not.
Right, no. And if you ever have any questions, or if there's some sort of exception that you think should happen, you should call CEA. Notifications. As I mentioned, you should be getting notifications. The agency contact, which for us is the HMIS agency lead, should be seeing the notifications. The program contact, if we've been given a different staff person's name to program in connected to a specific project, they will see the notifications, and the referral specialists see everything. You guys get a lot of notices probably. The notifications come in two ways. They come into your email address outside of the HMIS system with just the unique identifier. And there's a visual on the screen of what that one looks like up here. And then it comes into your Clarity inbox with the actual client's name. And you can click that link and get over to the client in that case. So those are two ways. These auto notices, once a client has been sent to you and they're sitting on your pending tab, after 2 days, if it hasn't been changed to in process, you'll start to get auto notices reminding you this client's been sitting on the pending tab. Once it's been in process for 10 days, you'll start to get regular notices reminding you that it's sitting in process. And then you'll see other auto notices for when referrals get updated or when there's denials or something happens to that referral. So the question is, when it's taking a long time for the client to find a place, what status do you keep it in? If you're working with them and you've accepted this referral, and Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I mean, both of you should correct me if I'm wrong, but now that every housing project in HMIS has the move-in date field, and you're gonna house them, you could enroll them, accept the referral, and then wait until they're actually moved in to enter the move-in date. Is that what you've been telling people? Okay. I think typically they're in process for a long time when it seems like we may not end up housing this person for whatever reason. We can't get a hold of them. We're not sure if they're eligible. We're working on something. And the handout, when we get to that point around denials, you'll see that the CEA program has provided a handout giving you very specific instructions about what denial reason to use for what purpose. And the virtual audience was sent that handout. And if somebody missed it, we can resend it to anybody. Okay, want to keep us moving here. So locating the CEA referrals, you can see those on your client's history tab, and then see those on the pending tab, which I referenced and which we'll look at. Like I was saying, you should acknowledge those referrals in 48 hours, and you're acknowledging them by changing the status to in process. And then obviously enroll or deny as quickly as possible, because otherwise they're not going to be getting another housing referral if you end up, you know, until they're back on the queue. Ideally, the referral was great for you and you're going to house them. Notifying the program if you are lacking contact information for the client, if there's something about the unit that has changed since since you posted it, or there's some sort of misunderstanding about the unit, or anything unexpected. When in doubt, contact CEA. And we have Alex and the other referral specialists' contact information at the end of this presentation. For the denials, obviously make the determination as soon as possible. I referenced the handout in terms of the reasons that you should use. And then always send this person back to the community queue, unless you know them to be housed, or they're deceased. Or they've moved out of the area. So external fills, you heard somebody bring that up already. So when you've posted a unit and that unit has been available in the system for 5 days and no referral has been sent to it, then it is eligible for you to ask to allow you to externally fill it.
Is that 5 business days or just 5 days?
5 business days.
5 business days. For processing external fills, we have the steps here. Alex is your guy. And then depending on which population you're serving, families, youth, you can CC the appropriate referral specialists, and those are listed on a slide later. You'll need to let CEA know the unique identifier of the head of household in the system, so that then they can just make the referral and you can go through the process.
Can we go back to move-in date really quickly?
Sure.
When you enter a move-in date, where do you enter it? Do you do a status assessment, or do you enter it on like the enrollment screen?
When you're enrolling somebody, I'm looking at Sarah because I want to say a status update. When I'm enrolling somebody and like Veronica's situation, because this is where I mentioned move-in date, and it might be months before they actually get housed. Typical guidance I've heard is to do a status update.
Yeah, you can do a status update, or you can go back to the enrollment form and put it there. It all kind of comes out in the wash at the end, so it doesn't really matter where you put it. Either place, whatever is most convenient to you is fine. If you need to do a status update anyway, because it's a requirement for your program, you might as well do it there. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine to do it on the actual enrollment form and just edit that form later.
So the short answer is either place.
And then a question about external fills. For an external fill, does a client need to have a triage tool complete prior to being an external fill?
Yes. Yes, good question. So that's step number 2, making sure that there's a housing triage tool is also the right type, right? That if you're housing a family, but you realize, oh, that we don't actually have a family triage tool for this family. We actually just had the single adult one for the one head of household, then making sure it's the right type, making sure it's in the system. They're, letting the referral specialists know who they are so that all the right steps can be followed in the HMIS system.
So the question was, if there is an external fill candidate for a unit that has been approved for external fill and they haven't completed a housing triage tool, what is the desired protocol? Is that delay the enrollment or the referral until they have that done, there are two options. You can enroll them in your program and then do the housing triage tool. And what can be done is, at the request of BidFocus's help desk, they can merge that enrollment with the referral. We'd like that done in a timely manner, obviously. If you're able to have them do the housing triage tool early, then it's easier just to do it ahead of time before the referral is sent.
You should just stand up here.
Yeah, that's true.
So you want to repeat her question?
So the question was, there are, I think this is me paraphrasing, the disparity between the number of resources that are available to be filled and the number of households, families, individuals experiencing homelessness. Why do things ever go to external fill? It's not a simple answer. It's a question of, are we able to get a hold of an individual when the referral specialist is attempting to make a referral between case conferencing meetings? Are we able to get a hold of them? And are they willing to accept? Because ultimately it comes down to client choice, to an individual's choice. So if they can refuse without penalty, so they can refuse open resources, and in order to honor the funders and the providers' requirements to fill units in a timely manner. That's why we've instituted that 5-day external fill policy. So when the referral specialist, when the CEA team is unsuccessful in pairing a household with a unit, then it goes to external fill. The other reason being is we follow a prioritization model, and time is finite, time is limited, and as many people as there are out there, we can't contact them all in a 5-day period. Yeah. And denials as well, yeah. Sometimes we make a referral, comes back as an unsuccessful referral or denial, to use the vernacular of clarity, and we then release it for an external fill.
Okay, so now I want to do a quick demo in the system. So again, I was just about to say, thank you. I'm receiving a referral, so I'm going to demo processing that referral. I will show you both what it looks like to locate and accept a referral and locate and deny a referral. In my Clarity inbox, I have a notification that I have, and I'm opening it up here, that this client, Michael Jones, had been referred to the queue. Obviously, some assessor did a housing triage tool, referred that person to the queue. Now it's been reassigned from the queue to my agency. That's the language of HMIS, reassigned to me for pending my processing of it. I saw that notice in there. I'm going to go to the coordinated entry referral tab here on the right. I see the pending tab. We were on the availability tab. Now I'm going to the pending tab. If I scroll down, I see I have 2 clients that I've received referrals on. If I want to acknowledge both of those, I'm going to open by clicking the edit icon. I'm going to scroll down. Now I've opened up this referral. I can see that it's allowing me to edit certain pieces of it. I'm going to scroll down, and here the status that it says pending. I'm going to select pending in process. That way I've acknowledged that I've seen it. I'm going to start working on it. And I'm going to save changes. If I go back to the pending tab, it's hard to see on the screen, but the color has changed for our client named Jellybean. It now says how many days total this person has been pending, and the system calculates that from when they went to the queue. But then also how many days it's been in this in process status. I then want to accept this referral. And the way that I accept a referral is to enroll the client that has been referred to me, the head of household, into the project that the referral was made to. That's the way I accept. The system will automatically then end that referral and take them off of my pending tab. So if I want to do that, I'm going to accept Jelly Bean into the project. We're going to house this client. I'm going to click on, I know I'm going right to this head of households profile. I know the link is going to be maintained between the referral and my enrollment. I go to programs, and this should be familiar to those of you who have done any enrollments. I'm trying to remember which project it was referred to, but I'll be able to tell because if I'm going to enroll in my rapid rehousing program and I scroll down, I don't see any link to the referral here. And I'll show you what I mean, because now if I go to the permanent supportive housing project and I scroll down, I see this link. I see that this orange box tells me that there's one referral pending to this project for this client. And I see this toggle. I want to maintain that link. I don't want to uncheck that toggle. Because if I uncheck that toggle, or if I'm enrolling the spouse of this household member that wasn't the one that was referred, then there's no link. They're still sitting on the pending tab. It still looks like they're waiting for a referral. You can imagine how sort of everything then needs to get kind of cleaned up afterwards. So now I'm enrolling. I'm going to go through a quick enrollment screen. Now I'm saving. I'm here in a normal program enrollment screen with all the program enrollment tabs. If I go over to the history of this client now, I see this, I see an older, this was from testing earlier, an older one that was denied. I see the one that I just finished has an end date now, which matches the start date of today's date when I enrolled and put today's start date for the project. And I see I have an active program enrollment, and I see this link showing me that this referral link is maintained. If I go back to my coordinated referrals tab and I go back to my pending tab, Jelly Bean's gone. That referral has been accepted. Just me enrolling them in that program with the link took them off the pending tab. Now they've been accepted. Are there any questions about that process? Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you. So the accepted tab, the completed tab here, if I go here, you'll see other ones that we've done in trainings. And there's Jelly Bean down at the bottom, my completed. So it's moved from the pending tab to the completed tab, and also see it in the client's history. Oh, sorry. The question was, I've enrolled somebody in my rapid rehousing program. There's no move-in date. Now they're moving out of the area. How do I process that? And you would exit the client and mark the appropriate exit destination. So the question was, so if they have no move-in date, but they're enrolled in your program, are they still in the queue? No. They are not going to get any other referrals because they've been referred to your project. You're housing them. It just is, there's time between starting to work with them and that project start date and the actual move-in date. So if the situation is such that they say, I've accepted them, they're off the queue, and they're not even on my pending tab, but now I'm exiting them, then somebody needs to go and send them back to the queue with their housing triage tool. And depending on the situation, if their life situation has changed, they may need a new housing triage tool. Sorry, I didn't mean to, I was like, oh, he was right there. I was just wanting to make sure I was restating that accurately, that once they've been accepted into a project, but maybe they don't get housed by that project, they move, for whatever reason, they're exited from that project. Now they're not on the queue, but they have a housing triage tool, still homeless. They would be sent back to the queue through the housing triage tool unless the housing triage tool needs to be updated for some reason.
And likely in that situation, the triage tool is probably going to need updating, but depends on how long they might have been housed, if the situation has changed. Making sure that the triage tool matches the family composition, whether it's single adult, family adult,
Right. So
right population.
before sending somebody back to the queue through their housing triage tool, making sure that the housing triage tool is still accurate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So just to clarify, so the initial question was when you've got a service-based project, a program like Rapid Housing, and you've enrolled them, you are not able to place them, they are exiting into homelessness within the region, you are not prompted to return them to the queue because that prompt only occurs when they're pending and you are looking at the pending enrollment, the pending referral the way Stacy just showed us. So if they are rapid rehousing and they're exiting into homelessness in the region, what we're requesting to do is that you or someone with assessor privileges at your program or agency re-refer them to the queue. Stan was pointing out that if the situation has changed, if the household size has changed, maybe they've gone from single adult to a family, we want to make sure that the housing triage tool is representative of their current situation. So that might require an update, and that would be at your discretion, right?
Either an update or a new tool if the population.
Depending, yes, if the population changes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. Okay. So these are good questions. I want to make sure we have time to cover the scenarios that we have as well. So really quickly, I'm going to show you what it looks like to deny and send somebody back to the queue. So now this pending referral sitting on my pending tab, I'm going to edit it to open it up. And for whatever reason, maybe I've already set it to in process because I did that right after 2 days and saved it. But now, for whatever reason, I can't house this person. So I'm not going to enroll them in my project. I already know I'm not going to be able to house this person. I'm going to deny. This has been an unsuccessful referral. There's a variety of denial reasons. Those are all in the handout of what to use when. So now I'm going to change that status. You're going to say denied. Never use expired. There's no reason for you to ever use expired. You'll say denied. And the very next thing you're asked is send to the community queue. It's yes. In very rare instances would you not be sending them to the queue, as you've just been hearing us talk about. They move away, you know them to be housed, they're deceased. Otherwise, you're sending them back to the queue. Better be safe and send them back to the queue so they are eligible for another referral. The denied reasons then will come up, and there's a number of reasons that you could choose. And the handout is very clear about what to use when and what not to use at all. We'll say that this client is out of the jurisdiction. We don't use any of the privacy toggles in the system here in King County. The software has those built in for a variety of reasons. Many of you have heard me say we don't use those privacy toggles because our coordinated entry system across the continuum, then you have referrals and clients that get hidden from that process if you mark them as private. Now we save changes. And now when I go back to referrals, I have nobody on my pending. I will see them on my denied. There's a few others there. Michael Jones is there on the bottom from this RRH program and then they are back on the queue. And if I want to check to see on the client's history, it was always a good idea to check. I can see now they are pending on the queue. Pending means they're waiting on the queue for another referral. Okay, are there any questions about that? Where to locate them? Yes.
Can you show us how to send someone back to the queue in the example we were talking about earlier if they're exited from a
So if you had already enrolled them and they were now off of the pending tab altogether, if you have assessor privileges, then you would be going to their eligibility screen, and down here at the bottom, if they weren't already pending on the queue, it would say send to the queue. So all the assessors are trained on how to do that. Somebody in your agency, or if you just are running into walls on that, contact CEA. Okay, I know we're getting short on time, so I'm not going to run this report, but I want to point out in the system under the community and referrals area in the report library, where you can see your agency, the referrals that you've received. If you look at inbound, you can see which ones are in pending in process. You can see it broken down by project. It's a, if you want a big picture of your agency and coordinated entry referrals, take a look at that. If you ever have questions about what it's counting or how it's counting, feel free to contact us. Because of time, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about common solutions, because some of these things that we've been talking about are some of these common solutions.
All right. We're going to talk about some common scenarios that you might encounter and be unsure how to handle. Scenario 1, my homeless client is missing from the community queue. This can happen for a variety of reasons. And as Stacy mentioned, we're not really covering the assessor portion of this whole coordinated entry process. But the most common reason why a homeless client has been assessed, but you're not seeing them on the community queue, they're not receiving referrals, is because they were never referred to the community queue in the first place. It can be the process for referring somebody. You really can't see that. I can't even see that from here. So the process for referring folks to the community queue is a two-step process, and it can be easy to miss one of the steps. Once somebody completes an assessment, what you're seeing here is actually that score screen that Stacy showed that shows your housing triage tool score. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that screen, hang on just one second, there is a link to refer directly to the community queue. Sometimes, depending on how big your agency is, you have to scroll quite a ways down to get there. Once you click that button, then you go to this referral screen here. And, well, now I've brought up the menu. And right here is where you save the referral. You don't have to actually add anything to the referral, but you do have to save it to officially send it to the queue. So if you have clients who are who don't appear to be on the community queue, which you can check under their history tab, that's a good step to check to make sure has happened. Another reason why your client might no longer be on the queue is because they were referred to a program and denied, but not referred to the community queue. So this is really a key step that can be, again, easily overlooked. Stacy did cover it, but when you're looking at that referral, which Stacy demoed, there is that question when you're entering in your denial status or you're changing the status to denied, the question to send them back to the community queue. It's really important that you choose yes. By default, there isn't anything selected, so you have to choose yes in order to send them back to the community queue. If you don't send them back to the community queue, then they just are not, on the queue anymore until they get re-referred back. Okay, next scenario. My de-identified client is getting referred to the community queue. How will coordinated entry contact them? So the problem, obviously, is that there will not be any contact information in the system for coordinated entry for all staff to contact this client. The solution is that when assessors refer clients to the queue who are de-identified, there is a process that they're trained in to contact coordinated entry staff with the client contact information. That information is stored outside of HMIS, but is available for the client so that they can still receive referrals. Of course, it is very important to notify coordinated entry for all with any changes because you're the only source of that information. They won't be able to get it from anywhere else. Next scenario. My client is on the community queue but needs to be de-identified. How will coordinated entry for all contact them? So again, the problem is that their contact information is about to be removed from HMIS, so there won't be any contact information so that they can receive a referral. The solution is to contact the BitFocus help desk. You never want to de-identify a client yourself anyway. You always want to go through the help desk to do it, and the help desk is trained
for what to do in this situation to make sure that all the appropriate parties have contact information for this client so that the client isn't lost. The help desk will contact not only coordinated entry for all staff, but will also contact other agencies who are working with this client to make sure that those agencies don't lose this client's identity as well. And again, it'll be important to notify coordinated entry for all staff if there are any changes to this client's contact information down the road. So just a reminder, when your client is revoking consent to having their identifying information in HMIS, or they're experiencing a situation that is requiring that their information be removed from HMIS, their identifying information, always contact the BitFocus Help Desk, as I mentioned. In some cases, a client will need to complete a revocation of consent form if there isn't a safety concern, if they're not actively fleeing domestic violence, then chances are good they're going to need to actually revoke consent by completing a form. Just like it's an informed consent process to have your information in HMIS, it's an informed consent process to have your information removed from HMIS. And again, if your client revokes consent while they're on the queue, the help desk will give you instructions for next steps and how to make sure that all the information that needs to get shared with others gets shared. Next scenario, the household is enrolled in my program, but they're still showing on my pending tab or in the community queue. One possible cause for this is that the enrollment wasn't connected to the CEA referral. The way that you can tell this is when you look in a client's profile and you look under their programs tab, that's where you can see all the programs that a client is currently enrolled in. At the very, very far right side of the screen, yes, right side of the screen, all turned around here. There's a tiny little link, which you can't actually see, but trust me, it's circled there. And that link will show up showing that that a referral has been linked to this program enrollment. If that link isn't there, it means that there's that link was never made, which can happen for a variety of reasons. And if that's the case, to resolve it, you just need to contact the BitFocus Help Desk and they can make that connection to the referral. To prevent it, when you are enrolling a client, as Stacy demonstrated, you want to look for, when you're looking under your programs to enroll your client in the programs who you've received a referral for, you want to look for that little green, orange box that says that there is a pending referral. And then you want to make sure that this toggle is toggled saying that program placement is a result of a referral provided by, and then it will say that the agency that referred the client to the queue. So by default, this is selected. So as long as you choose the right program and don't deselect that, the connection should be made, but we know that sometimes that doesn't happen. So again, if you're noticing that happening, contact the help desk. They'll help you get it fixed. Another possible cause for a client still showing up on your pending tab, despite being already housed in your program, or still showing up on the queue, is that the wrong client was enrolled. This again, depending on who's on the queue, you might have enrolled another household member, so the enrollment is there, but the client is still actually on the queue. The solution, again, contact the help desk. They can help you with many things, many issues. And then to prevent this from happening, we recommend that when you're going to enroll a client, you start from your pending tab and actually click on the client's name, which will take you to their profile. That way you're sure to enroll the right household member and make that connection. Next scenario, the household is enrolled in my program, but family members are missing from the enrollment. This is a tiny bit outside of coordinated entry, but it's a scenario that comes up all the time, so we want to talk about it anyway. The possible reason for this is that some of the family members got skipped during the enrollment process. The solution is to add family members to the enrollment, which, sorry again for the small and not very visible nature of our screenshots here, but what you're seeing in this upper image is what you see when you edit a program enrollment. So you're in kind of that program level screen where you can provide services or edit the enrollment information or exit a client. And then over to the right side, you will see this green box that talks about just general information about the enrollment. And right below that, there is title that says program group members with a little plus by it. And that is how you can add folks to the enrollment after the fact if you realize that only the head of household got enrolled and there are other family members who you need to add to the enrollment. If the process is not clear, again, don't hesitate to contact the help desk. They can definitely help you with that as well. To prevent this issue from happening, when you are actually enrolling a family, again, not very visible screenshot. This is the place where you're seeing that pending referral. You're also seeing the program placement toggle to make that connection with coordinated entry. This is also where you're selecting other family members to include in the enrollment. By default, they're selected. If you don't deselect them, the whole family should be enrolled. But in case any of them do get deselected, that person won't be enrolled. So make sure that the appropriate family members are selected when you're actually enrolling somebody in the program. Next scenario, I found out my client is housed but might still be on the queue. You can check to see if your housed clients are on the queue by looking in their history tab. What you're looking for is a community queue referral. You can sort of see, they show up in blue on the, I think they're blue or green. Yeah, blue, okay. They show up in blue on the history tab, and you can see right there, it'll say a referral to the community queue, and it'll be pending. That's how you know that somebody is actively on the queue. If there's a date there instead of pending, that was the date that they came off the queue, but if it says pending, they're still on the queue. And if that's the case, again, contact the help desk and they'll have them removed. The answer to all things is contact the help desk. Good. Great. So I don't know if y'all heard that. The help desk is great. They always have the answer, super responsive. So all the more reason to contact them, and they are happy to help. They're available 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, sometimes a little bit before 8, depending on who is staffing it at any given time. But and you can reach them a variety of ways. I think this is our last scenario. My available unit has been open forever with no referrals. So we talked a little bit about this process. Again, if your unit has been open for more than 5 days, 5 business days, with no referrals, you can begin the external fill process. And again, you email that request to Alex, CCing your specific referral specialist who works with your population to start the process. Here is contact information for the Coordinated Entry for All referral specialist team. We will send this slide deck out to everybody who is registered, so don't worry about writing it down now. You can get it from the slides later. Or we can go back to it after the training if you want to write things down. And then we also wanted to mention a few key resources. There are the Coordinated Entry for All monthly update calls that happen the 4th Friday of the month from 10 to 11 a.m. There's the number and the conference ID there to call. Again, it'll all be on the slide deck that we'll send out. You can also call the BitFocus HMIS help desk, as we've mentioned. You can email them. If you go to our HMIS website, there the phone number is also listed there, as well as a chat option, which you can use to chat with them directly. Any methods are fine for contacting the help desk. Our HMIS website, which is always a good resource, a good starting place. The link is here, and then the Coordinated Entry for All website as well, which is a great resource for all things coordinated entry, of course.
Thank you for everybody for managing the dual audience process. We try to make these as accessible as possible. And thank you to all the referral specialists who were here to chime in, and Alex for presenting